Let's talk herd. Yeah, I think it's amazing that you can bring that to an audience like that because it's so it's so challenging to be vulnerable in the way that you're not being, because you couldn't do that if you were doing it from ego, because it would just feel wrong. It would just, you would know that that's what it was about. And so to be able to do that, and it's almost like you're being a vibration, like a tuning fork or a light that just gets transmitted. So it becomes the size of that audience because everyone's connecting with it. And it's really amazing. I mean, it must amplify it so much.
That is such an incredible way to say it. To me, that is beautiful. Whew.
Yeah, no, I can really feel that. And it's I love that idea of the safe place. And it reminds me as well I thought of a couple of um, examples of it, but one was when I was teaching people more on, and we used to do it on the lunge because that was a safe place so that they didn't have to have reins or stirrups and they felt safe. And we always did it in a way that was very, very gradual. So you would never put anybody in a position of where they had to defend themselves, like where they had to get tight and stiff. So it was really, really important to say you were starting even just to go into trot, you would do just like the transition, and you might prepare for the transition for a long time. And you're just kind of building it and building it gently, 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 so that when it happens, it's such a gentle sliding almost into trot. And you don't lose any of what you've like created with your body, and then your body can cope with the movement. So it might just be a couple of strides, and then when you're strong enough, when you're flexible enough, and then you're also strong enough to keep the horse going and moving into that, you can still stay with it, and you can stay soft, and you can stay open. And it's just such a, like, it's not a longer way, it's a much faster way in a way to learn, because you're never tightening up, you're never getting out of that that soft, that bubble. Like you say, it's a it's what I suppose you could call it, a comfort zone. And it is. But when you always stay in that, then it gets bigger and stronger and bigger and stronger. And it's the same way with horses when you're riding them. If you always stay in that place of comfort, like you're trying to channel into the comfort all the time, and so that everything can be more easeful and more present, then it just melts. You get that melting. And so it's a really nice idea to think about when you're with the horses, just that you don't have to force it. Like, you don't have to sort of say, I'm going to be vulnerable, and I'm gonna put myself in a position that proves that I can be vulnerable, because that's not your comfort zone. You have to just allow yourself to be in your comfort zone until that starts to grow. And and it just feels really good then, I think, and not judge yourself that you've let anybody down. Or
That is so true.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All of that. Yeah, it's so, and that parallels, I mean, that's exactly the thing, kind of back to when we first started talking and saying, like, kind of more the specifics. I mean, that's the stuff we're doing, and I think that is it's it's part of what I love the most is this process of stretching our this comfort zone, but only stretching it within the space that feels safe for the horse, but finding like
exactly.
what is it? How is it that I can help magic? I love going through, like I have the performance that we plan very much, envisioning it, and of course it changes, and then it's an
Yeah.
evolution, but there's certain pieces that I feel pretty sure are going to be there, and I'm pulling things that are things that she is best at, and because it's the maneuvers themselves, the things that we do together, they're kind of like a way of like bringing your comfy chair from your living room like into the arena, because it's like when we go into those movements together, we both if they are the done in relaxation, and if I'm choosing the right movements and we've picked them together and all of that, then they should be a place that we both melt into each other. And it's actually it would be easier, and it is easier to, when I'm like in the middle of a crowd, to move into a certain maneuver with the horse, perhaps, than to like have stand there and not and be standing there. Like there is a relaxation within the motion that comes,
a channeling.
and then the standing, the being can be there too. But if I was just to start from the stillness, like it helps to have that movement for both of us to kind of find that inner pathway, where we can both align, which is not entirely unlike, what you described earlier as that could be seen as more of a rigid pathway. I mean, I think I can see both. I can see how that, but what my intention with what I'm doing with magic is really to bring in freedom within that pathway where we both meet, and to do it in such a way that freedom can be expressed, and still she and I both feel safe.
Yeah.
And in the midst of, the space that we're in. And I think that's, I'm just really loving the process of exploring that, and one of the things I love to do with her is just run, just like haul out, just take off on, both of us on foot, and I'll just take off running, and then she'll just try to catch me. And of course she can catch me very well, but I'll like turn, so that she's on the larger arc. And so there's this moment where she's like really, and she just looks so, the freedom that she embodies when she is just haul out, just hauling, like just running. It's nothing that I can train. It's nothing I can create. It's just her. And it's something I'm not quite comfortable asking for when I'm riding, like for her just to full out gallop and, buck, rear, because she'll do that. She'll jump up in the air and she'll do all these things. And so I love that with the Liberty, like I can have this moment where we can really embody that, and then have her come back, and then because she always finds me. Like sometimes she'll peel off and go away, and then she always finds me, and then to come back together and to to do something more intimate and slow, and show that just it's a play. I see this as a play of life. And to bring these different elements. But I do need those pieces of organization, so to speak, that could look quite structured, for us to have these places that we can rest in when we need that structure, because we do need some of that in the midst of like the overall kind of arcing atmosphere. It's kind of all part of it, and then we can have these, so it's all woven in. There was something else you said that was so beautiful, and I don't remember, and it'll come back. But anyway.
So when would you say that you had those structural things that you need? Did you that they were kind of just part of the training, or you just were they the beginning, or did that? It's not a very good question, but it's just because what you're saying sounds so, it's so much in alignment with engagement, in a kind of dressage context. And yeah, it's such a, like when you talk about finding freedom within that channeling, because it's like with engagement, there is, you are engaging your postural ring, and then the horse engages theirs, because so it's like two cogs that kind of ask each other to turn, and there's this like leverage between you that's very physical, and you do have to be sensitive, because a horse has to physically be able to do that in their body, and you might have to build up to that, and it's all about that becoming strong like a machine, that fundamental mechanism. And then there's just more and more freedom within that. It's like the stronger that gets, the lighter and more elevated, and then it just becomes like a stream of thought that's going between you. And and you could say in those circuit that, like, there is that you are channeling always with, and that the equipment in a way is part of that. Or what I know so far is that what I've learned is how the equipment is part of that, because you use the reins to help position the horse into this bend, and because they're not naturally, they don't do that naturally. So horses, they don't move in that way. So when you get on, you have to change the weight, you have to change and that's, you do that with equipment. I think what I really am looking forward to discovering is how you do that without, like, just like what you were saying at the beginning, how the horse do they respond to your body when you do that, with nothing else, with no other structuring, no other. Yeah, so that it's almost like change, because there's a part of me that says that's not possible, because you do need those structural elements, you need those pathways. But then that another part of me believes that it is possible, because I want to do it that way, and also the horses are sort of showing me that could be possible as well, or they're leading the way on that. So yeah, it's really, it is really, it sounds very much in alignment with what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can certainly, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a place of strengthening and aspects that they wouldn't necessarily carry themselves all the time in a certain way, but yet are definitely things they do, like in play, when they bounce up and, I mean, like a flying lead change. It's like so easy and so natural. And one of the things I've loved is helping Magic develop her body that is more comfortable in doing things that feel good to do.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've really experienced happen through her. But I mean, the mechanics of it, I mean, in some ways, it's not, in some ways it's not mystical at all. Okay. I mean, in some ways it's really, I mean, there's so many pieces of this. I mean, and the reins are just one, but I mean, our leg, our body, I use cue sticks for things, and those basically I can touch a certain part of her body, and it helps her understand, to be able to shape her body in a certain way. And then we do a lot of mirroring. So I do a lot of like, reach, I'll actually walk beside her and I'll tip my upper body, and it's asking her to basically reach her neck down. So almost like reaching down into the contact, so to speak, and stretch. And then if I come up and come back, then that's more, it's a lot of mirrored type things, and then also having a way of saying yes to those things. And I very much incorporate positive reinforcement, and that is it enables me to have a moment in time that basically this snapshot of this moment is what I'm saying yes to, and it just helps the horse comprehend beyond the energetic is like the whole picture, I feel. And then there's this snapshot of the physical, and it's like the click for yes enables me, or I do for me, that just, it's all that means is like what you were either doing in body, feeling in emotion, or thinking in mind. Any of those things it can mean yes to. And the way the horse knows which thing I'm cueing yes to is my intention, because they totally know your intention. So, and then of course there's times I might say yes to nothing at all, so there's that whole dynamic of that, the different ways. And then there's also a piece of, being open to, and inviting the horse to guide me as to what's going to help it make sense to her. I mean, magic comes to me in dreams. I mean, she literally comes to me in dreams. And there was one time I was struggling with something. So when I first started riding her bridleless, there were just some things that I did differently than I do now. And in part it was because she was so sensitive to me touching any part of her body. She really didn't want me to be on her to begin with back then. And that was a whole kind of other thing that I got off of her and actually spent a lot of time at liberty on the ground, and now she is allowing me back on her. But so she was just really extra sensitive to feeling me touching her body. So I kind of avoided touching her body. And but with riding without the bridle, I really need, I can't do it unless I can touch her body. I mean, we have to be able to interact and physically connect. So one of the things that would happen is when she would feel my leg kind of just tighten a little bit, sometimes she would just blow forward, just like boom. And, that was not very safe for either one of us, and not something that either one of us was comfortable with. And so I needed to help her understand that when I kind of hug her with my body, that actually I would like her to just relax into that as if it is a hug. Like, it doesn't mean take off. It's just a squeeze and to relax into that. Well, she was so convinced that she already knew that what it was I was asking, that I wanted, she really thought I wanted her to take off when I would give that hug with my legs. And she was getting really confused with it. And so she comes to me in this dream. I had this vivid dream about this, and she was this giant white horse in the dream, much bigger than real life, which is fitting. And I was itty bitty little girl, which is fitting. And I'm riding this horse, and the horse is way too much horse for me. I mean, the horse is just like way too talented, way too athletic, way too smart, way too everything for me. And then there's this other person who's also me, who's the instructor. And the instructor comes up, and this instructor is being hired to give a lesson to help this little girl with her big fancy horse. Wow. And basically the instructor says, tells the other instructor, it was like a teacher helping a teacher. So the little girl had a teacher, and the teacher needed help because the teacher wasn't getting through to the little girl. And so the instructor comes. So the instructor comes in and says, you've got to stop. You have got to make this boring. Okay. She is going to blow that horse up, like very blunt. They were not nice about it. They didn't sugarcoat it. She's going to blow her up, and meaning like blow her mind. Right. And he said, you've got to make this boring. This little girl has to make this boring. Okay. The horse needs her to make, this horse is way too smart. There's way too many, things firing in this horse's brain to take in all the information she's trying. You've got to make it boring. And so I woke up, and I'm bathing in this dream, and this happens with me a lot. And so what I do is I just kind of linger in that space and I'll watch the dream again, so it kind of moves into my consciousness, like awake consciousness. And then what usually will happen is something will show up in my waking life that is the matching energy to the dream. So it's like the dream is the energy of reality, but shown with different pictures. You know, just like when you have a relationship with one person and it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden they've got a new name and you're having the same relationship with somebody else, and it's the same crap. Same thing. It's the same. It's like the energy of it. It's just two different stories. So I rest there, right? So I'm rest.
It's like a metaphor.
Yeah, it's like the dream. Yeah. So I rest there, and if I wait in the inner, so I let myself basically bathe in the energy of the dream that I just had, and I wait, and then my waking reality will kind of paint itself on top of the dream, and I'll get the real life like scenario on that energy. Usually, this happens when the energy is something I wasn't able to hear in my waking state. It was being told to me, but I just couldn't hear it for whatever reason. Ego, humanness, merriness, whatever, couldn't hear it. So it comes to me in the dream. So I'm laying there in that in-between state, and that's when I see her as her, and she says, okay, this is what I need you to do to make it boring. And she just maps it out. She says, we need to ride a pattern, and you'll know from dressage, that's just basically a dressage pattern. She said, I want you to ride up into both corners and then come down the diagonal, into the next two corners, diagonal, into the next two corners, diagonal, into the next two corners, diagonal. She said, I just want you to ride that path. I don't need to have to think about multiple things at one time. I can't think about where you're telling me to go and deal with this squeeze that I think means go forward right now. My body thinks that you want me to take off, and you obviously don't. So, but I've got too much on. So I need it to be simple. And so I did it. So I went out and rode her, and it was so amazing because I could tell. It was like, I totally could tell. She was like, oh yeah, okay. She listened. She heard me. And so I did what she said, and we just walked that pattern, and I just walked it, and I'm still guiding her, but like I did it. It only took about 3 or 4 loops before she was, totally got it. And I could feel her just rest into it. She just knew where we were going to turn. She knew where we were going to go straight. She wasn't, because if I'm riding with no tack, like my leg has to mean a lot of different things. And I can be thinking turn left, my body can be turning left, but sometimes my leg, if it lifts a little bit, it means lift your body. If it waves a little bit, it means turn your body. If it's an inch back, it means move your hip. Like it's confusing. Yeah. And so it's so much. So it simplified it. And so all I did was we just focused on that squeeze being to relax instead of build in anxiety. That's all we did. And it was unreal how fast the light bulb went on for her. So things like that show up. And I don't know how to explain that. It's not separate from the doing. It's not separate from the fact that I'm getting on and riding her and I'm squeezing my leg and I'm waiting for her to relax to take my leg off. It's not separate from a very mechanical, technical aspect of training, but yet it's totally different in a way. It certainly has a different taste. Certainly when she's the one that showed up and told me to do it. And I really do feel that guidance. So it's and then on top of that, I'll cluck and give her a treat like when she nails it. So there's that too. So there's so many pieces that, of all of this, so many. But I did love that dream.
I almost, what I thought of when you were describing that was that. Yeah, it's amazing because it's a bit like, when you have a dream, it's like you have to receive something and you can't receive it in the waking state of mind. And when I thought of that, I thought maybe it's a similar thing that happens in you as in her, like too much information and like you're trying to kind of feel for the right thing, but there's too much. So in a way, the dream just makes you able to hear what's going on. So it's almost like a mirroring thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally that. Yeah, because I definitely get into that too much. I mean, that's my thing. My mind will be like just firing everywhere, and I'm so grateful, for this dream space. And as I've been able to bring my intention into my dream space and merge it with like an energetic
Mm.
reading, that almost it's like it's different, but yet for me, there's a merging of the two. It's deeply personal, so it's not like an
Yeah.
energetic reading for somebody else. It's my personal, but it guides
Yeah.
me in that way with that kind of clarity, and I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for it because it always kind of will swoop
Yeah.
in when I need it.
And there is something really powerful for all of us, I think, about doing the same thing. Oh, because when you do the same thing over a few
Yeah,
times, it's like your perception, like some bits of it can be relaxed and you're just doing those automatically. And then the other
yeah,
things that need more attention kind of come
yeah,
out. And I just like, just,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly that.
And that whole thing, when we, I'll just kind of change the subject slightly, but it was because of what you're saying about her sides, or not change the subject, but the perspective that when we were in our kind of phase of learning about the horse and how they respond, and just this pure postural um, relationship. So it was all about your body, and it was all about the biomechanical effects and energetic as well. But it came to
Mm,
us that that relationship with the rider's leg and the horse's side is really fundamental. And it's like that when your leg is in balance, like under your body, and in balance with your
mm,
seat when it's in the right angle, it's sort of got almost like a static leverage to it. So if it's sitting under there, it's just like,
mm,
and it's held a little bit in the forward. Like then you use the leg forward, not back, and that's very. And then that
mm,
was like one layer, but then the next layer, the deeper layer, was that's where the horse's diaphragm, like that's where you connect with their diaphragm, and you connect with
mm,
that those layers of where there's often stress and that's kind of where horses hold a lot of stress and tension in their diaphragm. And I
mm,
learned that more through the craniosacral and the therapeutic side of it. But that's why they have hard sides when they do, or when they have tight sides. So if your leg
mm.
becomes like a massaging agent.
Oh,
Yeah, and when you can do that, and when you can
mm,
synchronize that with your weight. And I think that's where that particular exercise was so helpful, because it feels like she was asking like that focus into the bend more,
mm,
so that your weight would come down more on that side
mm-hmm,
and just help her to balance more. And then
mm-hmm,
your leg could just be able to unlock her diaphragm, and then she could breathe. And so it is really
mm,
amazing when you, for me, I called that comfort aiding, because I do really believe that
I
there
love
is
that.
every aid, like every aid, everything you do, and also
Comfort
yeah,
aiding. That's beautiful.
every way that you hold your body, or every way that you connect, like physically
Mm-hmm.
with the horse, can be a comfort to them. It can be like a therapy